Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on the Succah Daf Yud Beis. We are going to begin on the bottom of Yud Aleph on the Beis, about 8 lines from the top. Zek Klal. So we're quoting the end of the Mishnah that says a general rule. Kol davar shemekabel tuma. You have to have two things in order for the schach to be kosher. It has to be that it's not mekabel tuma, and it has to be something that is gedul min haaretz, grows in the ground. So it says the Gemara, min animili. How do we know that this is a requirement? The pasuk says in Parshas Bereishis, that the fog, the mist, ascended from the earth. So too, this is the requirement. So if we're talking about like clouds and mist, so we can understand that it's like the Anani HaKavod, and therefore that's what we're trying to emulate over here. The Succah above us is like the Anani HaKavod, so that's why we're comparing it to this fog or mist. And here we have the famous Machlokas. The pasuk says, so what exactly are we doing when we're sitting in a sukkah? It's Anani Kavod Hayu. We're remembering the fact that we had clouds of glory protecting us while we were in the wilderness, exposed to the many elements of nature. And we actually sat in real booths, and we're really emulating what we did. So what is the Sukkah's mamash that we're in? What does that have to do with this fog? So we make a hekesh, just like we saw in Daf Testament Aleph, Sukkah to the carbon chagiga. What's that? Ma chagiga, this carbon. Davar she'en mekabel tuma v'gedul min haaretz. Sukkah, davar she'en mekabel tuma v'gedul min haaretz. Fine. So if we're learning out from the chagiga, look at Rashi, first wide line. V'alfinan taima migarnecha mikvecha. Loy samchinon alo lachshur yischach ba'oidos. You cannot use hides as schach, and this is question 13, Madua in the schach ba'oidos, even though it's the chlad geduli karka. So Rashi says, he granted the geduli aretz ikri. It is something which is considered geduli aretz, shem sha'aretz migadlosin demora uparnasa, that the animals are eating grass and vegetation, so it grows up from the earth. Of a gedula mina aretz ikri. It's not something that physically grew up from the ground. El davar hatsamech min hakarka v'lo behemos. It has to be something that flourishes and comes out from the ground and not animals. So that's the reason why you can't use animal hide for schach. Again, we're learning out from the chagiga the fact that we're comparing chag, which represents the chagiga, so therefore just like that is something which is not mekabel tuma, and is also something in which is gedul min haaretz. So that's the drasha. As we continue in Beis Manal, if that's the case, then machagiga balakam sukkah nam milchayim. That means that the schach has to come from a living creature, and we know that's not the case. So kiyasa Rabbi Yochanan, the pasuk says from when you gather from your silos and your wine presses. So you're supposed to use the psoilus, the leftovers, like the branches, and as Rashi says, the empty clusters is supposed to be used. So the emigarin atzmo v'yekav atzmo, maybe it's the thing itself. So Rav Zera yekav ksiv kan v'yeshol sachachmo. I understand your question because it says the wine press, but you can't actually use a physical wine or wine press as schach. So Rav Yirmiyah ve'ema yain karush. Maybe it's talking about congealed wine, haba min nasher, that came from this location. Shudaim l'guli vela, that it was so thick it was comparable to these figs that were all crammed together like in a ball. So maybe that's what was used. So Rav Zera familsa habibiyada. We taka had the answer in our hands. Rav Yirmiyah v'shad be nagra. And Rabbi Yomi came and like smashed it with an axe. So we had a great answer, and now he's coming up with, oh yeah, maybe it's this. So we're kind of stuck. Rav Ashi Amar, let's read the pasuk plus a little more critical reading. The pasuk says, "Migarncha," not your silos, but from your silos. V'lo garin atzmo. Meyikvech v'lo yekav atzmo. So the drasha, using that mem, is coming to tell you that no. It doesn't mean actual wine or the wine press, but it comes from it, which means the silos, the leftovers. The Chista Omer Mahacha. The pasuk says in Nehemiah, "Se'u hahar, go out to the mountain, v'yaviu elai, and bring to me zayis ve'eli eitz shemen, ve'eli hadas, ve'eli tamarim, ve'eli eitz avos." So he's being instructed to bring all these different things, right? It says in the Torah, or it's Nehemiah. You can look at Rashi. It says pasuk hu b'sefer Ezra. Ezra and Nehemiah is interchangeable. He was told to make a sukkah. And Rashi says, why did he choose these things? Obviously, they were specific items that were used because they did not, they were not susceptible to tumah, and they grew from the ground. So the Gemara just says, sidebar, hainu hadas, hainu eitz avos. It sounds like he's asking the same thing to bring. So Rav Chisda hadas shaitel sukkah ve'etz avos l'lulav. He was telling him that you can use just non-kosher hadassim, but they just grow from the ground, so that can be used as schach. Or for the lulav, then obviously it has to be eitz avos, which means it has to be proper. Okay. Next Mishnah. Chavili kash, bundles of straw. Chavili eitzim, bundles of wood. Chavili zaradin, and bundles of branches, in masach mehem. You're not allowed to use that as schach. However, the kol shetirin ksheros. If you would untie that, then it would be kosher. And then the Mishnah concludes with kol ksheros of the follows. We're lenient when it comes to walls. You can use anything for a wall. So you can see that it's all tied up. It's a problem. However, if you untie it, then all of a sudden it becomes no longer problematic. So that's what is being asked to be used. Oh, and then we have this picture, which is pretty self-explanatory, but we have a picture. Might as well show it. Like, you could even use these bundles for walls. Anything, almost anything we'll see, can be used for a wall. We'll discuss whether animals can be used as walls on another daf. Rav Yaakov. So Rav Yaakov says like this: Shemat mina v'nei Rav Yochanan. I heard from Rav Yochanan Tarki. I heard two different ideas from Rav Yochanan. Chadaha, one was this Mishnah that we just mentioned about the branches tied up together. The Idach, and also another Mishnah, which we'll see later on, Daf Tes Vav, as I mentioned in yesterday's daf, that a person digs a hole through a haystack in order to make that as a sukkah, so that's in a sukkah, that's nothing. Okay. So, Chad Mishum Gzeres Oitzer, the Chad Mishum Tasman Asoy. So, they're both not allowed to be used. But there's two different reasons. One is Tasman Asoy, which is taken directly from the pasuk and reads it's mamish asmi deraisa. The other is Gzeres Oitzer. Gzeres Oitzer means that really midiraisa is not a problem, but we make a Gzera midirabanan because if we allow this, a person will make a mistake and other similar circumstances violate. So one is a deraisa psul, and one is not a deraisa psul. I'm not sure which one's which. So Rabbi Yomi says, okay, fine. Let's figure it out ourselves. Let's analyze this a little bit better. So we said, why is our Mishnah the case that you cannot use these bundles that are tied together as schach? Because apparently you did it l'shem schach, you didn't do anything wrong. So the problem is she'adam b'am in a sada. A person may come from a field, the Arab at night, and he has a bundle on his shoulder. He's going to just throw it on top of the sukkah. He had no intention when he put it on that it should be for sukkah. that should be for L'Shem Succah. And afterwards he's like, hey, you know what? I forgot, Sukkah is here. I might as well use it for Succah. When he put it on, it was put in correctly. The Torah says Tasu Manasui. In other words, like this. This is the Gzera of Gzeras Oitzer. Because if we allow the person to just put up bundles, someone else may do the same thing. Now, the first person who put up the bundles did it with all the right kavanas, all the proper ways of thinking. It was done with Shem Succah. But the problem is that someone else may do the exact same thing, and it's practical because this is how these bundles usually are, and he'll just throw it up so it can dry, and he will have violated an Issa D'Oraisa. So therefore, because of that, we're going to be Geyser our Mishnah, which is the Rabbanan. So with the Hamishim Gzeras Oitzer, if our Mishnah therefore is Gzeras Oitzer, it must be the case of the haystack, Hamishim Tas Manasui. So Rabbi Yaakov Hachter Rabbi Chia Barabba L'Shmiele said that shot, he never heard of that logic, he never heard of that statement, and therefore he wasn't able to reach that conclusion. Amar Ravashi Atu says what? You're not telling me it's possible in our case that person could have violated it mamish as tasim and asoy, not just Gzeras Oitzer. The person's digging this hole, maybe he's doing L'Shem Sukkah, L'Shem Succah, and therefore the whole issue should be Gzeras Oitzer. So how's his answer? Rabbi Yochanan Malach Chacha. If you look at the language of our Mishnah and the Mishnah over there, it's very, very clear what we're talking about. It says that when it comes to these bundles, this person must have done it with the right intention. And we see this because the Mishnah says, you're not really, you shouldn't use it as schach, which is mashma, you shouldn't do it this way. As we continue at Beis Amud Beis, you put it up properly, so really make our idea you did nothing wrong, and therefore the whole issue is dafka as a gezerah. However, when it came to the haystack, Chasam Tani Eino Sukkah, it's nothing, which is mashma that feel di'evid midiraisa nami Eino Sukkah. It's mamish, not a sukkah at all, and therefore because of that, we can now establish that our Mishnah is because of Gzeras Oitzer, and the Mishnah by Chodesh Gadish Lasos Sukkah. Eino Sukkah is pretty clear that it's referring to Deraisa of Tasmanasu. Viter. I'm Rabbi Huda Marav. Succah b'chitza. Let's say a person uses arrows as schach. So, Zecharim Sheira. Now there's 2 points over here, as we can see in this picture. This arrow has a Zachar and a Keva. So it has a base kibble, which is problematic, and you have a zachar. So the zacharim are kosher, but the keva is psul. The base kibble part is puzzle, because it's makabel tumah. Now zacharim share pshita. Why would you think the zacharim are a problem? They're gilman karka, and it's not a makabel tumah. So now the tema nigzer zacharim after the keva is kamash v'lan. You may get confused. And you may say one is good and one's not good, or maybe they're both good. So you may end up using Nekavis as well, which is obviously problematic. Viter. Remember, Nekavis psul pshita. So the Nekavis is possible. Obviously, it has a base kibble. So manatem a base kibble has soyalim alois, loshmei kibble kamash v'lan. It's a base kibble that is going to be filled up because, as you can saw in that picture, you're going to be combining these two. So even though it has a hole, but you're going to put something in it, and it's going to remain that way. So it's not considered to be a base kibble at all, because it's not going to remain with this big hole to begin with. Kamash 1, we don't care. The fact that it was like this, or is like this, therefore becomes problematic. Omer Rabba Bar Marchan Omer Rabbi Yochanan Succah Va'anitze Pishtam Psul. The person uses the anitze pishtam, which are the flax, which are processed or partially processed, is possible. So we're going to say that when we're talking about the anitze is pishtam that is entirely processed, let's say. However, buhusni pishtan ksheru, if you have non-processed pishtan, flax, that's kosher. So you look at this picture, if you use this pishtan, it just comes directly from the ground. So there's nothing wrong with using it as long as it's tolish. You detach it because you haven't done anything. Buhushni pishtan inudeya. However, it's hushni, which is this, because like second, there's different processes that we do to the pishtan. So hushni we don't know. So if it's totally not processed, it's not a problem. If it's processed, certainly it's possible. But the hushni, it's partially processed flax, is questionable. That we don't know. Buhushni pishtan ein yodea mahu. Buhushni atzma. So not only is it a suffix what the din is by hushni, whether it's considered processed or not, enough to be possible as the Kabbalah Tuma, we don't even know what hushni is. Ein yodea manashach. I daik v'lo nafetz. Hushni korle. The question is, if let's say all you did was you daik, which Rashi says b'machteshes, you banged it with like a mortar and pestle. However, v'lo nafetz, says Rashi, b'misrak, you didn't actually comb it. So hushni korle, is that still considered to be like the second grade? Abul tari v'lo daik kutzni korle. But let's say all you did was, as Rashi says, tari, shori b'mei mishra. You soaked it, but you didn't even bang it yet. Is that hutzni korle? Maybe that's considered to be completely unprocessed. If all you did was soak it, the first thing you do is you soak it, and then you bang it, and then you comb it. So the question is, by you soaking it, does that create the level of hushni, and therefore, in this case, a suffix? Or do we still consider it to be hutzni? That's not a problem. Or dilma tori v'daik, if you soaked it and you didn't bang it, now mi hushni korle. Maybe even that is already still considered to be the second step. And that's the question, exactly how to read this. Question 14. Ma dinan shel shalvi pishtan halol l'sicha kamoshu gadol. If that's the way it's grown, obviously it's kosher, because that's like hutzni. Shrui b'mayim v'udaik, if you soaked it and you didn't bang it yet, so that's a suffix. Daik v'machteshes lo nafetz b'misra. You may have banged it with the mortar and pestle, but you didn't actually comb it, also as a suffix. Nafetz b'misra tahainu et anitzin, so which is like a completely finished process. Everyone holds that case will be puzzle. Let's just see a couple more lines. Amar Yehuda, Hani Shushi V'Shavatzri V'Sachin Behu. You can use these various trees, Rashi says, mini Yerakos. They come from various forms of vegetation. And Rashi says, Behu Sha'olav Rechavim. Its leaves are very wide. V'Goda B'Yirim. And it grows by forests. So he said it's not a problem. You can use it as chaf. Shenim mekabel and tumul. If you shenim Michael Adam, even if, let's say, animals eat it, it's not Michael Adam, so it's not mekabel tumul. However, bishvatzri lo mesachtin. You can't use this other type of vegetation. So my time, why not? Kivan, as we continue to Gimel and Aleph, to tsari rechayu, because Rashi is mavish reichel. It produces a foul odor, shavik lahu benafik. A person is going to end up leaving the sukkah. So therefore you cannot create an environment in which it's going to be a person not going to want to stay in the sukkah. Amr Rav Chanan Barava Hani Hizmi Vihigi. Someone who has these, Rashi says, mini snet, these types of like thorn bushes. Of course you can use that for schach. It grows from the ground. By Omer Behizmi Misachein. The Hizmi you could. Behigi Loy Misachina. You can't use that as schach. My timer. Kiban Dinatri Terpayu, similar to what we saw in Daf Yud, sends the leaves and will drop off easily because of that shavik levanafik. Person's going to end up walking out and leaving your sukkah because of all these different droppings. And therefore, for that reason, it would be like unenjoyable, sour, so you would not stay in such a sukkah. Okay. Question TA22. Succah b'chitzin ha'im sheret. He used these arrows. So simply said, scharim is kosher and the kelis is psul. Right? That was a softball question. That's the answer. TB24. Ma tam deman dermer the enusakim b'higi. So higi we said is because of the issue of the thorns will fall out. And since the thorns will fall out, you're going to end up wanting to leave the sukkah. There's a second part to this question, which we'll see in tomorrow's daf. Ad kan.